part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I'm your host, Damon Royster. I'm so happy that you're listening. Today, we are talking about the MCU Disney Plus series Moon Knight, aka Oscar Isaac continues his hot man reign. That's what I call it in my mind. He's so hot. Hello, everybody. We're finally talking about Moon Knight. Thank you all for waiting so patiently. We have watched it. I have gathered the best of the best to talk about Moon Knight. First up, my neighbor to my left, I think, somewhere to my left. This is an LA comedy writer. They do sketch, stand-up. They host a variety hour in the city of Los Angeles. Please welcome to your ears, Katie Visser. Katie, how are you doing?
Great. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yes. Now, are those new glasses?
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
you
man.
can't tell those listening, but they're aqua, and I'm very excited about it.
Yes. If you are noticing Katie is speaking with confidence, it is because her glasses look amazing and they're brand new.
Thank you.
And then even further to my left or right, whatever, further east, so far east, she's in another city and state. This is Chicago's very own starlet. This is an actor, comedian, writer of all the things. She writes for a local TV show in Chicago that is for children, so I'll never watch it, but I will support it. It's Yazmin Ramos. Yazmin,
hello. I'm absolutely devastated to be here.
Yeah, I really brought you in on a downer.
I was like, oh, okay, I'll see some action, and then it was anything but everything but. Yeah.
I mean, there were some action scenes.
I mean, this is the perfect thing for me to watch in all seriousness, because I like love this stuff, you know.
Oh yeah,
part of it.
Yeah, Yazmin only wears black exclusively. Okay, so we're here, a little Your Dark Embrace reunion. Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. We used to do sketch comedy together. Deal with it, folks. So before we get into Moon Knight, I just wanted to get a little. We already talked about it off mic, but just get it recorded. Where are we at? Where are we coming at from the MCU? Yazmin, let's start with you. Where do you watch Marvel? Why or why not?
So please don't hate or judge me, but I don't know the difference between DC and Marvel, and I get very confused between the two, which is a popular thing that non-Marvel heads encounter. See, my thing is, oh boy, I'm afraid to admit this, but I enjoy the original Spider-Man movies, like with Tobey Maguire. I don't know if that's good or bad. That's kind of where I'm at. I've seen Iron Man. Is that Marvel? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I've only seen the first one. And I've seen Wonder Woman. That's DC.
Yes. You're doing great.
Okay. Cool. But that's it. I'm totally new. I don't typically watch it because I'm not like a huge action fan, but yeah.
Okay. Much like Meryl Streep, who famously said she's never seen an action movie in her life. Meryl Streep did say that.
That kind of checks out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say Devil Wears Prada was sort of an action film for me.
Oh my God. When Anne Hathaway had all those coffees in her hand,
and Emily got hit by a car.
Oh,
yes, she got hit by a literal car.
I was forgetting about that scene. Yazmin, it is totally fine that you're not a Marvel fan. I dare I say that's why I wanted to do this podcast. I want to hook people. I want to get more people into Marvel, but I will, man, not knowing the difference between DC and Marvel, I feel like there's an academic difference for me of like, DC doesn't get this kind of sad. I feel like Marvel, DC is more interested in telling like, we are gods walking among humans.
Wow.
And Marvel's like, oh boy, what have I done? I'm a superhero now. I can't do this.
That's helpful.
That's how I feel. Other panel, Katie Visser. How are you doing with MCU?
I'm just like this bright-eyed, innocent little new Marvel person where every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, this is just really great. And like, I have no, no history with it, no like background, but I like keep seeing stuff that I like, and I'm like, I should just watch all of it. So a new fan, and I have an embarrassing question.
Please.
Who owns the who's responsible for the Black Widow and Hawkeye stuff? Where's that fit?
Marvel.
It is Marvel. Oh, good.
That's Marvel.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I was like, I had COVID and had to quarantine on literal Christmas this past year, and could not bring I was very depressed having to cancel travel to see my family, and I could not bring myself to watch any Christmassy content, but I watched all of Hawkeye and I really loved it. And I was like, so that keeps happening. We're like, oh, this is great. I should just watch more. Yeah.
Which, I mean, I would say Hawkeye takes place during Christmas.
It does. It was the only kind. I also watched Die Hard that day as well, because that was the only kind of Christmas content I could handle.
Christmas adjacent, yeah.
Christmas adjacent, where people are, getting murdered. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Fun for the whole family. Well, we're now entering Moon Knight, which I like to call Boy Sailor Moon. That's really what this is. Katie, starting with you, how just overall thoughts, Moon Knight? How? Because I'm really interested, because I know for both of you, because I know you guys are not normal Marvel viewers. So how did you take in Moon Knight? Katie, did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did enjoy it. I felt like it was a very different show at the end from what it was in the beginning. I felt like it was like there were several different vibes and different styles of show within this one show. So I was like, and that was cool. Part of me was kind of like, oh, but I miss like the London days or whatever, from the beginning. I don't know if there were in London, but they were definitely British. And I'm like, so there were like, as it would move into a different phase, I'd be like, oh, I kind of miss that other stuff, but the new stuff is cool too. Like, it was fun that it went through different phases. From first episode to last episode, I felt like it was a totally different show. It was entertaining.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that hippo.
Best thing about the hippo is just how she greets them. It's the best thing in the entire show, where it's like, it's scary and tense. She's like, hello. Too good.
Yazmin, as someone who enjoys sad things, how did this sad thing work for you?
When it first started, I'm like, okay, where is this going? I didn't read about it at first because I didn't want to spoil anything. I hate spoilers, and I hate even watching trailers sometimes, because sometimes I feel like the whole movie is or show is in that trailer. Yeah. So I was going completely I don't know what this is. It sounds fun, so I'll choose this one, and I was not expecting it to be as sad as it was. And then when I found out what he was struggling with, like his mental illness, I was like, holy moly, this is the heart of a lot of things. And then as they were explaining it, and I love Shutter Island. And so it kind of felt Shutter Island-esque to me, in that this reality has been created, but that's not the reality. And it's just to escape. Right. So I was just like, when that moment happened, that switch where I realized what was happening, I was like, I'm in forever. Season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, give me a,
Dang.
Yeah, it was.
That's how you hook people, Marvel.
Yeah, because it's it's so pretty and cool to watch. The fight scenes are ooh, it's it's sort of mystical in a sense of these gods and stuff, but
yeah.
It definitely, the heart of it is what, oh God, that moment where you're like, I'm going to cry. I'm fine.
Yeah, man. Because ultimately we find out in the course of the series that Oscar Isaacs, his name is Mark Spector, but he suffers from dissociative identity disorder, DID. And that came about as a way to deal with trauma. Honestly, I love how much Marvel is dealing in trauma these days. Honestly, Yazmin, the new Doctor Strange movie, check it out. If you like, oh boy.
Do you have to watch the first one in order to?
No, but you do have to watch the WandaVision, the Disney Plus series, which also talked about trauma. And then Doctor Strange is what happened to Wanda after WandaVision. But just this, there's this traumatic event in his past. We learned that he had a younger brother that he led down a cave, and the brother died. Honestly, this really reminded me of the book and movie It. Similar thing happened to that brother. And he created this other personality of Steven. Well, I guess he lost his brother, and then I guess the real trauma is that his mother never forgave him for that. And he ended up creating this character named Stephen. I want to say Stephen Grant, which was a character from a movie that he and his brother always watched, like an archaeologist. And that kind of is where we begin. Is Stephen Grant? I'm sorry, real question. I think we should start Mark or Stephen. Who do we prefer? I have already shown my hand of who I prefer.
Yeah, I hands down, Fred. Steven is so entertaining. I love him. It's so good. And it's like, and I'm like, what? You're just coming into this you're in a different, like, it's a very different kind of character, I feel like, to everything that's around him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel, I'm like, who showed up as like, he showed up as like Eliza Doolittle from My Fair Lady all of a sudden, like, is here. I just kept on thinking of that character.
Yeah.
Because his accent is so intensely like, you know, it's kind of that I feel like it's, I don't know, maybe I'm not right, but it feels like a kind of a Cockney accent from, you know, and that kind of just was so jarring. Like, it's not in the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, great. I know like this person, and then nobody else around him is in that same world, you know, obviously rightly so, you know, but it was just so entertaining to me. And my favorite is the two of them going back and forth. Anytime the two of them, Mark and Stephen, are going back and forth, is so good, because I just kind of felt like it felt like an extra from Seinfeld meets Eliza Doolittle and My Fair Lady, just back and forth. I was like, this is like totally. It's like I'm Brooklyn, mind your business, and then like flowers for sale. Like, it's just like constantly back and forth.
Yeah,
it was so.
Yeah,
I think that was very funny.
I think I'm going to be a contrarian and say I prefer Mark a little bit.
but you know what? We need that. We need balance. Much like the scales on the boat, we need balance.
I think though mainly it's because Steven was so adorable and he was so like sweet. But okay, and this is not a dig on Oscar Isaac. He's amazing. He's incredible. I love him. Mm-hmm. Okay. I just couldn't buy the accent, and because he's not British, right?
No.
Yeah. I couldn't buy the accent because it did feel a little off. And then I was like, oh, maybe he is British. I was like questioning myself. And then Steven's comedic timing was just a little bit off. Like, there were some moments where I'm like, oh, I get why it should be funny. And people like, you know, that are not critical on the comedy side are probably like, that was funny to me, you know? Yeah. But the timing is just so slightly off that I was just like, you're annoying. Mm-hmm. And like, listen, you're not listening, right? Which is like a big turn off for me. And like, what's happening? And then people would try to explain. He's like, no, that's not true. That's not me, you know? And I work in a gift shop, and I'm like, what? and so I like Mark because he just like felt so much more grounded and more like, just more severe in like approach to life, I think, which I like a little bit, maybe.
And to your point about Mark.
Yazmin, you can like Mark Spector. If you like Mark Spector, speak it out.
I do like him. I think I like personally, I want to date somebody that's grumpy. Like that's my dream.
There you go.
Somebody.
This is all coming back to me. Yes. Yeah. This is true for you.
Well, and Mark's great because Mark's like super soulful, and like there's layers there, right? And you can like get under the layers of like, oh, what's going on with you? And you're not going to just tell us right away. And that's always very appealing. Like, you know.
Exactly.
And then also, I feel like the show, I think it wins in the show's favor that Oscar Isaac is bad at that accent, because it's not real. Like, it's something that he put on because of his disorder.
Yeah.
So it's like the perfect cheat of like, oh, he didn't like the accent. Well, good. I'm not really British. I'm going through something.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know at first. And then I was like,
right.
Now I feel like an asshole.
But just for a moment, can we each try and do a Stephen?
Oh God.
I like Egypt and mummies.
And mice. I'm so sorry to all of our British fans.
Sorry to my UK fans. I know you
like
are a legion.
These stupid Americans making fun. Yeah.
Have you ever heard though, somebody who's British make fun of somebody who's American, or
Yeah, I've seen Nervy's Town.
They immediately say, I want a hamburger.
Well, we do always say that.
Honestly, yes.
That is always my first question. Does this place have hamburgers?
Yeah, as long as it's a vegan hamburger.
But my impression of Steven was just going to be him saying hello to every villain that shows up in the show. Like, I feel like he's just like, it's like so funny how it's very quiet. And he's just like, hello, like really quietly, and you're like, dude, stuff's happening. Why are you so chill?
Well, with that, my favorite thing about Steven is the fact that when he becomes Moon Knight, he becomes what we are calling Mr. Knight, which is the Moon Knight in the suit and just the mask. So different than the real Moon Knight, which is the mummified hood, crescent moon cape.
I was going to ask about that because I was a little confused. I think maybe I missed that explanation or something.
Oh, I mean, it's just that, like, when Steven goes Moon Knight, it's the suit, but when Mark goes Moon Knight, it's the cape and the cowl.
Okay.
And the vengeance. Right. Where to go next? I feel like, okay, so we talked about that. So the most interesting thing is that Mark and Steven are two different personalities, but they share one common love interest in Layla. So let's talk about Layla. Let's go to Yazmin. Go to you first. How was Layla for you in this show? Did we enjoy?
Did we enjoy Layla? Yeah, I think so. I also looked her up on IMDb, the actor that plays her, and I was like, oh, okay, she has fairly light IMDb credits, but is an incredible actor, I feel.
Fun fact about her, she auditioned over Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, she had she was doing some monologue or something on her Instagram stories, or maybe on her Instagram page, and the casting people of Moon Knight were like, oh, she's great. I think they were trying really hard to find an authentic Egyptian person to be in the show. And so, yeah, that's how. So I think this is like her first big thing.
Yeah, she's great. I like her. She also felt to me very like, sometimes they serve the purpose, those characters serve the purpose of like just helping along that main character. But I did like that she was kind of like, I have my own set of goals. You know what I mean? Like at first when they're in the boat, she was like, well, I'm not here for you.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that part. Yeah, I don't know. I like her presence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she does she helps the plot keep going because Mark's got his own thing that's separate than we haven't even got to the villain, which we'll get to him in a second. But like, she's like, we've got to keep going. We've got to stop Harrow from releasing what's her bucket, that alligator lady. Ahmet.
Ahmet.
Yeah.
Or she crocodile alligator. We're gonna figure that out. I'll look that up. But Katie, how do you feel about Layla?
She was great. She was another part of it where I felt like had all of these different versions of her. Like there's the like incognito like fighter version. There's the goddessy like warrior version at the end, which is super cool to see. And like, I felt like she was like had all these different roles. It was fun to see her in all different, showing up in all different ways. Also extremely entertaining to see her become the avatar for the I can't remember what her name is, the hippo.
Miss Hippo. Yep.
Miss Hippo, which is not her name. That scene where where Layla becomes the avatar was very entertaining, where she's like fighting with herself, basically arguing with herself.
Yeah.
I went back and forth about like, is this really hokey or is it like fun? I can't tell. Like, is this like, I couldn't tell if it was working.
Oh, that scene?
That's it. Like, or whenever any one of them would have to be like, because Mark has to do it too, would have to be like playing two different people arguing with themselves in the same person.
Yeah.
I would never knew if I liked it. Like,
Right. Like, are you referring to the scene where he's like possessed by the god or like by Khonshu and he's like, you don't understand me.
Like, no.
There will not be another tribunal after this.
I mean,
you fools.
Whatever this is, I will watch this show that's happening right now. For sure.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of fun watching Moon Knight. I'm sorry.
No, I specifically when there's a moment when Moon Knight and Mr. Knight are switching back and forth. So Mark and Steven are just going back and forth in the same body at the same time, just like, and he's like having a conversation with himself. And I was like, I don't love that. I like when they're seeing each other and talking to each other. I don't love when it's and same when Layla is, I'm going to butcher the name. Is it
Tauret?
It's not Tauret. I don't know, but
the hippo. Yeah.
Yes, that's the hippo. When she's like arguing with her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you decided to do this." And she's like, and also that's what I was gonna say is Layla plays pissed off very well. I love that when she's angry. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I feel like she's pissed off a lot, which there's a lot to be pissed off. I mean, her husband, and to her husband just up and left her and disappeared for months. I don't know how they got married without the whole split personality thing coming out, but to each their own.
Yeah. Well, it was that what did he say? It's until recently what happened? Something that triggered him, right?
Oh, was it he went back home and that's what triggered him. So he probably was already married before then. Okay. All right. Fine.
Like he went home for the mother's Shiva or something. Is that when you're talking about that he went home?
I believe so.
Because it was like after all those years, the dad asked him to come home for the mom's funeral or something.
Yeah. And he was like on the street, and then I guess that was the first break, and he was like, "Oh, I don't belong here."
Yeah.
I'm so good at Steven. Doing Steven. Before we take a break, we gotta acknowledge our villain. Ethan Hawke. I don't care to learn his real name, his character name. It's Ethan Hawke.
It's Harrow.
Harrow. I've been saying this. I feel like this villain is he's very good at being boring. I think he is so boring, but it's a choice. I think he chose to be the most boringest villain in all of Marvel history. He does not have much emotion ever. And I think it's a choice.
I think it is. I agree with you. I do think it's a choice. I think especially because we're used to villains being like, yeah, yeah.
Come to me, Thor.
And the real villains are those people sometimes. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Right? The ones that you never expect, or the ones that are just like, everything's okay, I promise.
Yeah. And I think that some of the really scary villains can be like the people who are like, they make you come to them. They're just like, I'm gonna be real quiet and still, and you're gonna have to be drawn into this, and that, he does that really well.
Yeah. And I did really like in his first episode, the first episode of the series, where like they just established that these people will do anything for him. Like they are like, it's a cult, like he's a cult leader essentially. And because we're so used to like just this like endless, henchmen, like, yeah, we're beat us up. We're here to be beaten up. But like I like how like these are his disciples, but also his foot soldiers. Like they just fill a lot of roles in that way. Any strong opinions about Ethan Hawke and Harrow?
I mean, I like Ethan Hawke.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I didn't even consider that. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Ethan Hawke? You don't like Ethan Hawke?
I've never, you know what? I'll come clean. I've never gotten Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke has always been Ethan Hawke to me. Like I've never been like, oh wow, he's such a chameleon. It's like, for me, it's just Ethan.
That's how I feel about a lot of actors, to be honest. And I blame Hollywood fame for that, though. Being in the spotlight too much. But anyway, I don't know. I kind of like it's sort of scary and eerie for me to see somebody play it like he played that villain. It's like, who can you trust? You know what I mean? At first I was like, wait, do I trust this guy?
Right. Because he kind of was like, kind of like welcoming to Steven of like, oh, Mark's such a bad guy. I'm so sorry. Yeah. And at that point we were like, yes, Steven's our hero and Mark is this crazy murderer man.
Right. Exactly. That's like possessing him or whatever. But and he even had that moment of like, which I know is bad and it's not okay. But even when he was explaining like, okay, when you if we can prevent bad from happening by killing the people who are going to do bad, I was like, what an interesting concept. And I was like, no.
You almost bought in.
I know for a second, I was like, that's such a great idea.
Yeah.
Preventative healthcare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ugh, these
Oh
men.
my God.
Ugh, these men. Katie, how was Ethan Hawke's Harrow for you? Harrow.
I liked it. I thought he did the like immediately, like he gives off the not to be trusted vibe, and like, you know, I'm like, this person's shady, and I feel like that fits.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it did its job. This will tell you exactly how different my typical taste in movies and content is from this stuff. But my personal Ethan Hawke is Before Midnight, Julie Delpy's movies, which I absolutely adore. And then also I really liked it. He did they did a movie version of Nick Hornby's novel, Juliet Naked, which he is in that too, and a delight in that as well. So very, very, very different, like these very like realistic rom-com-y things. Totally like couldn't be more different from this type of movie. And I'm like, oh, Ethan Hawke, yeah, from Before Midnight. Like very, very different content. But I do always like him. Yeah. You know, I like him fine. It's fine.
Not an ounce of romance for Ethan Hawke in this series.
No.
Okay, cool. Honestly, thank you both for reminding me that people do like Ethan Hawke. That's why he gets work. And
he's so nice. I met him at a gala, and he went up to the tech people in the gala because we were like honoring him for when I worked at the film center. And he went up to the tech people and he was like, thank you all so much for being here and doing this. Like, I really appreciate it. Like, good job. Like, it looks great. And then walked away. And I was like, I know some other famous actors, I will not name, who were total like,
same.
You know, same. And he did not. So I was like, oh, well, now I love you in all your movies.
Yes, of course. And will of course respect your privacy, not to reveal those names. And if you could just drop them in the chat on the Zoom, that'd be great. You too, Kate. Although, Kate, I think I know your answers, but
you know my
the
terrible people I've had run-ins with.
I live.
Oh wow!
A twist. Damn. The more I learn about famous people, the more my heart breaks. Okay. Well, we're gonna recover from this, and we're gonna judge people like Ethan Hawke wanted to judge people. So we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about some hippos, some crocodiles, and some mental institutions. You're not gonna want to miss it. Podcast 616 will return in a minute after this break.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomenal CBD store and phenomenalcbd.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we're back, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back. Oh, speaking of breaks, mental breaks, how about that mental hospital or institution? That was a very bizarre twist for me. I was not expecting that. Going to Katie Visser, how did you, because that was episode 4, the end of episode 4, The Tomb. Mm-hmm. Oscar Isaacs gets shot by Ethan Hawke. And it's like, oh my God, what were you thinking? And were you expecting that reveal?
I was thinking, this is the main character. What are you doing? What's going to happen if he's gone? And then I was like, no, but that's, and also they're dealing with all of these mystical elements. I'm like, oh, well, they'll figure it out. He'll be back. But, but this is kind of what I mean by like every episode had a really different feel. And like the first half of the show and the second half of the show felt like two different shows to me in a way. And I really did love, because I think it's, once he is in the mental institution, then they really break down, okay, what happened in your childhood and why is that like, and that's that whole second half is so heavy and powerful. And like, I really like the way they did it. And I think when they go into his childhood and you see the kind of, the inciting incidents for like why all this stuff is happening, I thought it was really well done, and it's very emotional and moving, and like, I was like, oh, this is really good TV. This is like kind of, to me, this is the point of stories, is to empathize with somebody about where they're coming from and what has happened. And like, so the show did empathy really well, I think.
That's the point of stories, is to learn to empathize. Yes, that is. And yeah, thank you. We should also mention, I feel like we have not paid enough homage to how Egyptian mysticism this was. Like, this is a magic show, everybody. Yes. And so Mark and Steven are not really in a mental institution. It's actually this, they're on a boat on the sand of the dead. And they are trying to balance out their scales with the help of this hippo god.
And I love that whole thing where they have to like get to the field of reeds or whatever, which is kind of like a heaven for them, and like how their skills have to be. I love why their skills I was like, wait, why do their skills have to be balanced? Like, what is that? What's the action going to be to balance the scales? And I love that it's putting all the pieces of their lives back together, like having a complete memory of, and like a realistic memory of what happened is so good.
Yeah. And Yazmin, you said that you just watched episode 5 before this podcast. So talk to us. Was this your favorite episode of the whole series?
I would say so. Absolutely. Just because, and a lot of for me, I'm always questioning, is this real or is this not? Is this real or is this not? Even in my everyday life, I'm like, am I like in a mental institution? And I'm like, and this is like a real thought. It's not me making fun of it. It's like a genuine thought I have. Like, am I like disassociated where I think this is real, but it's not,
Yeah.
It's kind of a scary thought that I have sometimes. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, my thoughts. And I thought it was just like that, the whole mom scene and finding out about the brother, right. And the mom yelling, so like another great actor in that. So
she was great.
Harsh on this kid. And at first I thought she was talking to Steve, and then she was essentially, but it was a little boy on the stairs, and I was like, oh no. It was so devastating. And even the point where she was like, went into his room later, and they kind of like, they walked out, and you can kind of infer what happened in the room when he was like being abused.
Yeah.
It just like was just so like heart-wrenching and like very sad, and like there are so many people that like have to deal with this and that don't get to, like maybe don't escape in that same way, or, don't have an outlet, or don't have help even, So it was just like all of those emotions were rushing up. So everything, and then the hippo thing confused me. I was like, what's happening? So it would like take me in and take me out. And I think that's what I enjoyed the most about that episode, was just like I was like so devastated, and then we're just like trying to also make sure that they're succeeding in what they need to do. So it was heavy.
Oh yeah. And this was like such a turn for Marvel, because Marvel will do like sad, heavy things, but they've always maintained this idea that like your parents are like your North Star, like your safe place, like your family's always going to love you, but then sometimes they'll kill off a parent or something, like that's where the sadness comes from. I think this is definitely the first time I've seen, at least in the MCU, like an abusive parent where like they weren't the source of like happiness and joy. Yeah. So it's really interesting that like the first character they do that with, it's Moon Knight, who like when that happens, it really fucks with his head.
Usually they make the mother sick, right? In these kinds of movies, like like
right.
Joker. I mean, they're abusive like emotionally, but to see it physically.
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shout out to if any comic book nerds are still listening to this podcast, we are a movie podcast, not a comic book podcast, I dare say. But I know that a lot of people were waiting. This character is Jewish in the comic books, and his Judaism plays a big part, I think, in his story. So I liked in this episode 5, we got to see them like sit Shiva, and they at least acknowledged his faith. So they kept that the same for the comic book. So for all you comic book fans, there you go. But yeah, I really liked these kind of moments. This also reminded me of like WandaVision, because they did a similar like penultimate episode where they explore the characters' backstories, and it really just, you know, helps flesh out the characters so we know who the hell this guy is. Because it ultimately is so fun to think about, like Moon Knight as a show. Fun for me because I like to think about these things. How like I was like, oh, Stephen Grant is the main character, we have to save him. Mark's this jerk, and like I really came around, and now I'm like, oh, I really do feel for Mark, and Steven's got to go. You're not. Thank you for the knowledge of Egyptian history, but it's Mark's body. I'm sorry.
I felt I felt that shift too as I watched it, of like who I was feeling like I was seeing the story through, and who I like cared about more. I felt like it totally shifted over to Mark in the second half, I would say.
Yeah. All right. This is the point of the podcast where we have to pick up stray plot details that we may not have talked about. Do anybody want to talk about Khonshu?
Oh my god,
that big bird head motherfucker.
I thought it was J.K. Simmons at first.
I did too. Yes. And I also just kept thinking, like, this is the In a World voice, like In a World. He just always sounded like he was doing the VO for like a trailer. The whole movie, the whole time, the whole series, he felt like he was doing a trailer.
Well, yeah, because also his little beak never moved. It was always like, for any Animorphs fans, thought speak, just kind of like telepathically communicating with Mark, you have to go.
Yeah,
we have to save the world from event. That's my Khonshu.
Did it feel like that it was like kind of, he was kind of playing it as comedic sometimes? It felt like it was comedic sometimes in a weird, like out of place way. Like, I don't know. It sounded like a little, I don't know, goofy.
Definitely think that was sort of the intention, even though he was sort of like taking advantage of this vulnerable person.
Yeah.
Right.
As an avatar or whatever.
Did you guys did you watch the scene after the credits?
Yeah.
Of the last episode?
No, I don't think I did.
Ooh. Well, the last scene, so Ethan Hawke is in an actual institution. He's getting checked out. He gets into a limo, and there's Khonshu in the limo, and driving the limo is another version of Mark Spector, a third personality that we did not know about, and that personality shoots Ethan Hawke, and that's how it all ends.
Oh shoot!
Yeah.
So Khonshu is not to be trusted.
That's the con truth.
Oh, there you go.
That's the better one. That
was the better one.
So I mean, that's interesting, because what that does is kind of make me rethink everything we've seen of Khonshu, of like, oh, he's not to be trusted. And it makes me interested to see a season 2 with more Khonshu.
Yeah. I don't feel like I got enough from him other than like his objective, you know?
Mm-hmm. He turned into a tiny statue at one point.
Yeah. I also don't like Bert, like I mean, he was like, I do love the costumes in this. I will say too.
Yeah, so good.
You didn't like him?
I said, oh, so good.
Oh, they said not so good. And I was like, oh.
So good. I really did. Like,
I did love his, like, you know, the imagery of who he was. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And kind of like dark too, you know. It didn't feel, it felt like, sometimes it feels a little hokey, you know, like I am a villain. Yeah. He's scary, you know. But he kind of had like the like reality of like a man, like a person, you know.
Khonshu.
Yeah, there was one point where he was like sitting on a hill or something on that cliff when he was like, I thought he was gonna talk, and that guy died. He cut his like that boy. He was like, oops, my bad.
Mhm.
But even his just like stature just felt very real to me.
Yeah. That's her Khonshu character. And then go to Katie Visser. How did you feel about Layla becoming a little superhero in the end?
Love, 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 love. So fun. I was like, oh, this is it was like a new version of her that I really liked. It was super fun. And I was like, yes, now you get to do some of those fun fight scenes, you know. I think did she do fight scenes before that?
She was much more grab my
did.
gun and shoot.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, no, it was cool. I liked that whole thing. And I just like, I really love like mythology, all the different types of mythology and like that kind of stuff. I like was really into those classes in school and stuff. And I just love that world coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically how whenever you have mythology playing a part in like a contemporary show, I feel like what you break down is like, oh, the gods have all of the same problems as human beings do always.
Yeah.
And I love that so much. And it's like, gods will be gods. They're so screwed up. Like everything is just like the same as what human beings are going through. They have like all the same flaws. And I love that this show did that a lot.
Yeah. And I do want to thank you for saying that, because that made me when I described the difference with DC and Marvel, I did say DC was gods walking amongst us, and this show does have gods. But I think because of what Katie said, it makes it different than DC, because it is like the humanism in all the god characters of like Ethan Hawke fooled all the gods gathered in the show to have a debate, and Ethan Hawke is like, I'm not doing anything wrong, and they're like, we believe you. And then Ethan Hawke did indeed raise a giant crocodile to take over Egypt. Did we like that last scene? How did we feel about the giant Power Ranger monsters fighting each other over Cairo?
Cool. I mean, like I said, I like wrestling, right? So, but I like,
you do like wrestling, yeah.
So you would think that I'd be like, yeah, you know. I like because Layla turns into the Scarlet Scarab, right? Is that
that's their official name? Yeah.
And a
her superhero name.
A scarab is flesh-eating insect from the sandy hills of Egypt, right? And so I wanted to see like, you know what I mean?
I would have loved if she did that, and then that little girl's like, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" She's like, "Yeah," and tears open someone's skin. She's like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's because it's predictable that it will end on a big fight scene for me. That is like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that complaint before, and I'm always like, I don't know how else do you wrap up?
I know, that's the thing, right? It's like, duh. It's like, that's even with wrestling, like you're gonna have a main event match, duh. Like,
especially like you're building up these people with superhuman abilities, and the best way to showcase those superhuman abilities is to watch them crush some Thebes.
Exactly.
All right, anything else? Have we missed anything? Have we not talked about anyone's favorite part? I'm gonna give a shout out to that cupcake truck in the first episode when they played WHAM.
My god, I was like, I thought about that moment for a while, because like more than I needed to, because I was like, what other kind of truck could they have used that would have like, could it have been like a dog grooming truck, you know, like
yeah.
Like, why a cupcake? Like, what's the symbolism for the cupcake, you know? Frosting. I like really thought about it.
Oh, like the deeper meaning. Why cupcakes? Yeah.
But just because it's fun to see food get destroyed. Like,
exactly.
It added, yeah.
And I think for me, because we didn't talk about how like this was kind of like a mystery show at the beginning, because you weren't sure what was happening to Steven. Because we were just getting fragments of things. And for me, it was just like, you know what, you're either gonna we're not gonna tell you anything, but here's some cupcakes and some WHAM. Just focus on that. We're whipping cupcakes and we're playing George Michael's.
Yeah.
I like kind of always mourned that we didn't go back to like, well, we kind of did, but I didn't spend more time in Steven's world because I was like, oh, this is what I love. It's like this very tiny little insular, very quirky little world. And I loved his little one-finned fish, and I loved his like, you know, routine and stuff, and his gift shop job, and the girl that he stood up at a steakhouse. I just loved it all. It's like, you know.
What was that?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think it was someone else.
Oh, okay.
It was a coworker at the gift shop, I think. But yeah, so it wasn't her. But yeah, I just loved his little like life, his little daily routine, you know.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that because I really wanted to see him like with the boss again, where like the boss could see him as Moon Knight. Yeah. Just I don't know. I've had a lot of bosses who think that I'm a slacker. And it's like, no, I'm just a really hardworking comedian. See my show.
I would love to. Yes, and I would love to see the boss come back at the end and be like, "Okay, you're a superhero. Like, do inventory. I don't care.
Yeah,
like, just get your inventory done."
Damn, Katie, full on. That don't impress me much.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a Marvel superhero. That don't impress me much. Hopefully we have the rest of that song. All right, y'all, that is our conversation about Moon Knight. But as you know, no episode of Podcast 616 is complete without a rousing round of fuck, marry, kill. This is where we take 3 characters from the show and we decide if we're going to fuck, marry, or kill them. I have decided, since it would be a crime to put Layla into this, because I feel like it would. We all know we're going to marry Layla. Just know that we're marrying Layla. Yeah. So. Yeah. With 3 characters, all 3 characters, 1 body, we're gonna fuck, marry, kill them. So we're talking about Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, and Khonshu. So Mark, Stephen, Khonshu, who are you fucking marrying, killing? I will start. I'll give my guests time to think. So for me, oh man, you know, I'm gonna kill Mark. I'm so sorry. I know.
Yazmin is
so sorry. I'm just putting him out of his misery. He's had such a rough life, and I don't think it's going to get any easier. He's a mercenary. He was already killing before he became Moon Knight. And when he's Moon Knight, it's very scary. And he's just the puppet of Khonshu. So I'm going to kill Mark just to keep myself safe. I'm going to fuck Khonshu.
I knew it.
Because I am brave. And if it's on the table, I'm like, I can infer what fucking Mark and Steve would be like, but I don't know what it's like to fuck Khonshu. So I'm gonna fuck Khonshu. I know he's all CGI and he barely has a neck. I don't think he has a neck at all. And I just want to, what's it gonna be like? Who's gonna do what? Whose role is I'm there? I have so many questions, and there's only one way to answer them, and that's fucking Khonshu. And I'm gonna marry Stephen Grant.
Aww.
You know, I love Stephen so much. What an adorable human being. I love his fish. I love his gift shop. And I love when he's Moon Knight and he's got the suit. And I think the suit looks really sexy. And that's where I'm at. Let's do Katie, please. Let's have Katie, your fuck, marry, kill. Who is it?
I had the same thought. Well, I had similar thought process to you. I will also fuck Khonshu because I like life experiences, and
life is your like, one chance.
Life experiences, and it's like, oh, that would be interesting. Like that would be interesting for me. And a lot. I mean, I don't know. He's not like an anatomical man, so it'd be interesting for me in a lot of ways, sexuality wise. But I was like that. So definitely that. The other two, it's very difficult. I think that I will marry Mark, even though I think that's kind of a toxic choice, because I feel like he's very deep and he's got layers, and I think he does a good thing. He does the right thing in the end. Mm-hmm. So it would be an honorable partnership, but also like, well, I don't know. I'll get into why. I'll get into why I will kill Stephen, which feels crazy, but it's because
my husband.
I don't want to be in a relationship with him. I want to be like him. I want to be the Steven. I like his nerdiness, and I would like to I continue emulating that. I don't need to be in a relationship with him. You know what I mean?
Very Highlander. There can only be one.
Can only be one. Yeah. So yeah, but marry Mark, even though I'm like, we're going to be in therapy a lot. Yeah.
A lot.
Which is great. Everyone should be. I'm in therapy and I love it. Everyone should be in therapy.
Fair. I really didn't give Mark a chance. You're right. Thank you, Katie. Yeah. Yazmin Ramos.
Yeah. All right, here we go. This is a hard one for me, I will say. But you know how much I love Mark. I'm obsessed with Mark. I think there's a lot there, and I think I could help him.
That's why I said toxic.
I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, we have to help ourselves. And I think for me, I would marry Khonshu, and here is why. Because he is God. He is God, and you know, I feel like that's the best person to have by your side, a God, you know, and like what doors it could open for my life and our lives together.
What doors it can open. I want the connections that Khonshu can provide.
A marriage of convenience with a God is really next level.
And I feel like I love a grumpy man, but I also love an annoying man or like partner. And so I feel like Khonshu kind of covers both annoying and grumpy.
My friend.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm like sexually attracted to Khonshu, but I think we could make it work. And I would definitely have sex with Mark for sure, 1000%. I have to kill Steven, and not that I don't care about him or appreciate his existence. I just think that not at this time.
Wow.
We've chosen to go in a different direction.
And that's what makes it fun. I shouldn't take this so personally.
It was hard to answer because it does feel a little like, oh no, because he is struggling with dissociative identity disorder, and I don't want to make fun of that at all. Right. But yes. But if we're talking about individual people, yeah, definitely. And Oscar Isaac in general, I think I would just want to marry, fuck, and kill him. So
I could see that. Honestly, last thing I'll say, I did not get Oscar Isaacs. I get it now. Like I just didn't get what the big deal was, because he just kind of seemed like generic action man. You know, like people saying they liked Oscar Isaacs truly to me was like saying, oh, I love Matt Damon. I'm like, why?
Nobody does.
No.
Oh. Can I just tell you, since you brought him up, you brought him up for the first time. I was toying with whether or not I should mention this, but I have been always, for years and years, have disliked without a good reason, disliked Oscar Isaac, and the reason was because
that's your face.
I have an ex-girlfriend who was obsessed with him, and it infuriated me, and it just became a point to, I just was like, okay, well, I will hate him out of spite. And there was no reason for this and I was like, when you told me we were going to watch this for this podcast, I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to get past that and like him for himself. And I think he's a delight. He's great. So all is forgiven.
I'll also say too, this show, and I hope there's a season. I think there's a season 2, or maybe there will be. I don't know if they've released the date yet or not. But I will say I like to watch the TV show or the movie or the film version of like a book or a comic book or something before. Like I like to watch before, because I don't want to have an expectation of what I'm watching, but now it makes me want to read the comic Moon Knight. So
same.
Like, to understand the characters more and like obviously the plot and stuff. But I just, I don't know. There's something about this story that I'm just so, I guess it's just like the heart, the connection to like, mental illness and all that stuff. So it's just like, it's so good. And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I'm so thankful I got to watch it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have on my own.
Oh, I know. I'm so glad, because truly this was like just at random. I knew I wanted both of you on the podcast, but I was like, I don't know why not Moon Knight? So I'm glad you both enjoyed it, from the sounds of it. Because it was just a very delightful surprise, because I think the MCU is like getting to a point now where, we've already done the established superheroes and we're kind of like exploring ones that just aren't as popular or as well known. So I'm very excited to see the future for Moon Knight, who is now someone I care about.
Yeah.
Okay. I like Moon Knight. Okay. Jeez. But also I like my friends. So Katie Visser, if I was on the internet and I wanted to find you, where would I go? How could I locate Katie Visser?
Yes. By my name on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Katie L. Visser on Instagram and Twitter. And then also you can follow my show that I produce and host here in Los Angeles. It's called The Nonfiction Show. Come check us out. You can follow us on Instagram as well under at the _ nonfiction show. That's annoying that there's an underscore. But yeah.
Let's not underscore how good the show is. It's very fun.
Thank you. Oh boy.
I only have one job on this podcast. Yazmin Ramos, where can I find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kim Kardashian.
Okay.
I'm just looking Kim Kardashian's Instagram. Yes, that's a good follow. You can follow me on Instagram at Yazmin Alicia, Alysia. However, I don't really post that much, and when I do, it's just reposting drag queens. So if you're very into drag queens and sometimes comedy, please check out my Instagram.
Hell yes. That's great. Plug for Yaz. She loves the drags, the drag queens. If you wanted to follow this podcast, well, you can. We're on Twitter at podcast616p3 as part of Press Play Productions. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Damon Royster. On Twitter, it's DamonRoyster88. Thank you so much. Producer Michael, if you could hop on the mic real quick. I know you're having some technical difficulties on your end, but if you could give a grade for this podcast, what grade would you give it?
A+.
That's an A+. We are doing, man, our GPA is through the roof. Okay. Thank you, Katie and Yaz for being on the podcast.
I rate us M for Moon Knight.
Man, you got to go to bed. All right. You're up late. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Yaz. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Moon Knight. Thank you, Oscar Isaacs. Thank you, Moon Knight. Thank you, Oscar Isaacs. This has been Podcast 616. I'm your host, Damon Royster. And don't forget that with great power comes great responsibility.